Today is a mashup of joy and sadness even before we got to the events of this particular Shabbat in Shemini Atzeret in Israel. And one great example of that tension is the reading of Sefer Kohelet, the book of Kohelet, on Shemini Atzeret. This is Zman Simchatenu, as we said, this is a time of our rejoicing, and yet we read this somewhat depressing treatise about the meaning of life and whether there is meaning to be found. I think ultimately Kohelet offers us some meaning to be found, but it's a long road to get there. I want to highlight three individuals who have been studying Sefer Kohelet this year, and a great example of the way that we have both rabbi and professional-led educational opportunities at Beth Am, like our upcoming Scholar in Residence weekend, which will be terrific, but also all the ways that Beth Amers come together to learn, to study text, and to share one another's Torah. Three individuals who have been working on that this year are Barry Kessler and Johnny Simpson and Sam Novi, and I think Melissa Gear was also a part of it, at least for a time. And they have now concluded their studies of Kohelet, and in celebration of that, but also acknowledgement of the reading of Kohelet on this holiday when we celebrate joy, but also grapple with the anxiety of the harvest and the anxiety of life and existence, we get to have a little bit of a siyum, a celebration, the conclusion of the book. So I want to invite Barry and Johnny and Sam to come forward and share a little Kohelet presentation for us. And raise your hand if you didn't get the handouts, and we can get handouts to those who can't see one yet.
We each chose a small selection of Kohelet to share with you. We'll read the verses and then tell a little bit about why we chose it and what we have learned from it. Divrei Kohelet ben David melech Birushalayim Havel Havalim Amar Kohelet Havel Havalim Hakol Havel Ma Yitron La Adam Bechol Amalo Sheyamol Tachat Hashamesh Dor Holech V'Dor Ba V'Haaretz Leolam Omadet V'Zarach Hashemesh Uva Hashamash Ve'el Mekomo Sho'ev Zoreach Hu Sham Holech El Hadarom V'Sovev El Tzafon Sovev Sovev Holech Haruach Ve'al Sevivotav Shav Haruach Kol Hanechalim Holchim El Hayam V'Hayam Enenu Maleh El Makom Shehanechalim Holchim Sham Hem Shavim Lalachet Kol Hadvarim Yegeim Lo Yuchal Ish Ledaber Lo Tisba Ayin Lirot Velo Timale Ozen Mishmoa Ma Shehaya Hu Sheyeh Uma Shenaseh Hu Sheyaseh Ve'en Kol Chadash Tachat Hashamesh. I'm not going to read the English because you all are capable of reading the English by yourself if you weren't already following it there. But I want to point out that a very interesting problem is the translation of this key word haval, havalim, or hevel. It's a complex word, and you notice that I didn't translate it as vanity as the King James Bible does, or even as futility as our standard JPS translation does. It really is clear from reading the entire book of Kohelet that the message of whoever the real Kohelet was, probably not King Solomon, that the wisdom of his book is that he's not blaming human beings for being vain, nor depressingly, I think, claiming that nothing matters at all, that everything is futile. Havel in Hebrew means a shallow breath, and if you noticed, it was in the poem that Rav Tyler chanted before Yizkor as a breath. What Kohelet is reminding us is that our time on earth is short, that by the scale of geological time or even historical time, we are here just for a moment, just a shallow breath within the context of the cosmos. Kohelet, the book, almost didn't make it into the Bible. There was a lot of spirited debate during the period of canonization, and many were very opposed to it. That should come as no surprise, since it is really, really radical. It's extremely unorthodox. It's thoroughly unbiblical, and I'll just point out one way that is. The main way, I think, that underlies the whole thing is the idea of time. You heard in my reading about the cycles of nature, and he also extends that to the cycles of human life, not just dor lador, but in the famous section from chapter 3 that the birds sang so beautifully long ago, and that still stands in so much memory, that Kohelet sees time as cyclical, whereas almost the entire rest of the Tanakh introduces and creates the idea of linear time, that time begins at creation and it continues through events that are not replicable, like the Exodus and the revelation at Sinai. These are unique points in time, and then it ends with the Olam Haba. And Kohelet just undercuts that. And by undercutting the idea of linear time, also undercuts the idea of ambition, of a sense of human purpose, and maybe even the sense of self. We have to recreate that in the context of cyclical time. And so I think that we're reminded to put aside ambition, put aside great purpose, the idea of accomplishments and achievements, and just enjoy the moment. Be in the moment, enjoy our food, enjoy our senses. By including Kohelet in the Tanakh, the Bible gives us a sort of a choice or a dialectic. Can we pursue goals and try to make a difference? Or can we live in the moment and eat and be satisfied? Is it possible to do both? Can we honor that call to sit back and enjoy, and at the same time do a small part to make the world a better place? And that's a balance that I think Kohelet and this time of year, this season, is calling us to do in each in our own lives. Johnny.
I'm ready.
Oh, there you are.
I was hiding.
ראיתי את העניין אשר נתן אלוהים לבני האדם לענות בו, את הכל עשה יפה ואיתו, גם את העולם נתן בליבם, מבלי אשר לא ימצא האדם את המעשה אשר עשה האלוהים מראש ועד סוף. ידעתי כי אין טוב בם, כי אם לשמוח ולעשות טוב בחייו. וגם כל האדם שיאכל ושתה וראה טוב בכל עמלו, מתת אלוהים היא. ידעתי כי כל אשר יעשה האלוהים הוא יהיה לעולם, עליו אין להוסיף וממנו אין לגרוע. והאלוהים עשה sheyiru milfanav, mahashahaya kevar hu, va'asher liot kevar haya, ve'ha'elohim yavakesh et nirdav. So I was struck with this portion by some kind of radical differences in translation. And so that's kind of where I wanted to focus my attention. Safaria makes switching between translations pretty easy. You just click a button and you can go from like half a dozen different Tanakh translations. So I was kind of drifting between the JPS, Jewish Publication Society translation that we use here, and the Koren translation. Koren is a publisher in Israel. So obviously translation is inherently interpretive, and these three sources really wrestle with the contradictory and surprisingly unorthodox nature of Kohelet's ideas. It's almost impossible not to do that. So as an example, he says, "Ata kol asa yefeh v'ito." So is this, he brings everything to pass precisely at its time, as JPS has it? Or perhaps it's, he has made everything beautiful in its time, the way Koren translates it. So precision or beauty, the quantitative or the qualitative? Is reality fundamentally a realm of this clockwork precision and masterful craftsmanship, or is it a beautiful, mysterious enigma? Again, we see this dichotomy where Kohelet says, "Gam et ha'olam natan belibam." JPS has this as, he also puts eternity in their mind. Koren says this as, he has set the mystery of the world in their heart. So the mind or the heart, eternity or mystery. Again here, Koren takes the more literal translation, libam, but in the literal, we actually find a softer meaning. JPS, on the other hand, is locating Kohelet's struggle in the mind, that this is an analytical problem. So they're really just two ways of approaching the same human experience, one embracing that mystery, and the other more analyzing it as a question. It's as if the text itself kind of reflects that slipperiness of Kohelet's intentions or his meaning. Ultimately, however, both methods end up with the same results, as the translations almost converge here. Belibi asher lo yimtza ha'adam et ha'ma'aseh asher asa ha'elohim merosh ve'ad sof. Without man ever guessing from first to last all the things that God brings to pass. That's JPS, it kind of rhymes. No man can find out the work which God has made from beginning to end. That's Koren. So Jewish tradition affirms that the spark of divinity exists in all humanity. We are made in Hashem's image, yet only in his image. Despite our remarkable faculties, our sensitivity, our self-awareness, we simply just can't fathom the mystery of eternity. It's beyond us. Kohelet then says, as Koren translates it, only God can find the fleeting moment. JPS has this as, God seeks the pursued. Only Hashem can know his creation, but we are treasured among the created. Shabbat shalom.
My reading is from chapter 7, and because my voice, I'll just skip to the English. In my own brief span of life, I have seen both things. Sometimes a good man perishes in spite of his goodness, and sometimes a wicked one endures in spite of his wickedness. So don't overdo goodness, and don't act the wise man to excess, or you may be dumbfounded. Don't overdo wickedness, and don't be a fool, or you may die before your time. It is best that you grasp the one without letting go of the other, for one who fears God will do his duty by both. And I love this passage because while our tradition tells us that we are made in the image of God, that creates a challenge for us around what we do with the parts of ourselves, with the parts of our friends and family and neighbors that don't feel so godly. You know, the parts of us that are petty and selfish and wicked in certain ways. And, when we respond by feeling shame about those parts of ourselves or feeling judgment of others, what should we do? And what Kohelet teaches us is to overcome that shame, to overcome that judgment, to try to put those feelings aside and truly understand our full selves and the full selves of our communities as all being made in the image of God.
So, this is just a tiny piece of the 12 chapters of Kohelet that we studied. Are we going to now read the final lines?
Yeah, why don't we all?
You're going to do that?
I'll read it together. Finish the book together.
So, I'm the firstborn son of two firstborns. So for me, Erev Pesach is always a big deal. And in my Temple Beth Shalom in Roslyn Heights, New York, we always went as a family to hear somebody who had studied an entire book of the Mishnah or the Gemara all year long, and we got to read the last line with them and get the merit or the credit for having read the whole thing all year long, so we could get a bagel with a schmear and not have to fast all day. So I thought we would save the last line, which we haven't studied yet, to study it with you, so you could all have the joy and the merit of reading, of completing.
Kiddush.
Yes, and having a nice Kiddush lunch together.
So, and one other thing that we spoke about, that the
That's right,
rabbis,
you
the rabbis kind of institute this tradition that we don't end with the final line of the book, because you'll notice the last word of this book is ra, is bad, and even in all of their questioning, they say it has to be some hope, some goodness. So we'll read verse 13, verse 14, and then we'll conclude verse
Read
13.
13 again.
All right, ready? Sof davar hakol nishma, et Elohim yirah, v'et mitzvotav shamor, ki zeh kol ha'adam, ki et kol ma'aseh Elohim, yavi v'mishpat al kol ne'elam, im tov v'im ra. Sof davar hakol nishma, et Elohim yirah, v'et mitzvotav shamor, ki zeh kol ha'adam. Mazel tov.
Yeah.